Should Snoopy lay on his back? Is that how he does it?
I think so.
Just send him our best.
Okay, absolutely, yeah.
So you can put a little brandy in the baby bottle.
Okay,
So there's this book and another book I did here at the library. If anyone's a member, please pick it up and read it and let people know. This is a book about the DC punk rock scene. I was a teenager when all of this happened. So each chapter starts with a song. This chapter is The Motherfucking Circle. The name of the band is Swizz. The song is Won't Breathe For You. And then I'll go right into the story. When your teeth fall from your face, I'll be there to catch them. And with your smile in my fist, I'll do all your smiling. DuPont Circle's where all the punks hang out, said Lars. You never been there? I know it's near my old school, but I don't think I saw it. Where is it? I said as he passed me his beer. It was just backwash, so I didn't drink any. It was a muggy Monday after work. I found Lars panhandling on M Street again. It was too hot to wear my suit, and I desperately wanted to go home and change. I also wanted to go home before Mother so I could go back out until late. She had been giving me a hard time about staying out late when she knew I had to work the next day. But I figured it was my summer break, it would be my birthday soon, and I'd be back in school. It's downtown, said Lars. Connecticut Avenue and Massachusetts run through it. What do you do there? Hang out? Drink? Fight? Talk? Whatever? Why there? Why not? I went home and I changed. I pulled out of the driveway just as Mother pulled in. Lars and I headed down to DuPont Circle and parked on the lot off of P Street. Walking by, businessmen heading home reminded me that I was straddling their world and the punk rock scene that summer. Fucking yuppie scumbags, said Lars as he gave the finger to some guy who was looking at him funny. We crossed the street into the Circle, which had a fountain at its center. It was ringed by benches, and on the outside cars drove past. Bums, messengers, and punks mixed in small groups to one side of the benches. This is Ronnie motherfucking Collins, said Lars. He's like the prince of DuPont Circle. I remember him from the other night at the canal. Ronnie held out his hand for me to shake. He was a light-skinned black with a short afro. Ronnie smiled, and Lars went on with his introduction. All the women are in love with Ronnie, and all the men wish they were more like him, except, well, no one wants his addictions. It's a pleasure, sir, I said, and took Ronnie's hand and shook it. He had become a legend to me. Lars had told me countless stories of his old friend. My favorite was how he had gotten his name. Ronnie had been drinking the last drops of a 40-ounce bottle of Old English malt liquor and was walking down M Street in Georgetown. His hair was cut short. He wore a plain white shirt, blue jeans, and combat boots. He looked like he was ready for war. He passed a man in his 40s who was wearing a Dallas Cowboys baseball hat and t-shirt, which is something you just didn't do in the town of the Redskins. The man stared at him and shook his head with disapproval. Ronnie wasn't paying much attention to him, assuming he was a guy just cruising for young boys. But after a moment, he heard the man call out, "Nigger." Ronnie stopped and slowly turned in the direction of the man, who was smiling. "That's right, I'm talking to you," he said. Maybe he was drunk. Without warning, Ronnie punched the man in the nose. The man fell to the ground, and the gun that was in the back of his belt fell onto the sidewalk just out of reach. Seeing the gun, Ronnie became furious, continued punching and kicking the guy in the ground. "I'm a cop," the guy screamed in between blows. "I'm Ronnie motherfucking Collins," he shouted back, continuing to tear the undercover apart. It took 4 cops to pull Ronnie off of him. From then on, the scene deemed him Ronnie motherfucking Collins. He spent a few nights in jail, but in the end, they let him go. After introducing Ronnie, Lars walked off to get some beer. Some of the lowlifes and bums loitering around the fountain came over to me. The biggest one said, "You got to be paying the white boy tax." "What?" I said. "You was a white boy, right?" Yes." "You was in the Circle, right?" "Yeah." "You need to be paying the white boy tax or I'm going to fuck you up, son." Ronnie stood up. "Leave him alone, motherfucker," he ordered. They left me alone. From that point on, I considered him a friend. If there was trouble, he was at my side. No questions asked. I felt safe around him. I didn't have to prove myself. He just accepted me. whereas the rest of the scene, I had to seek out their approval. Listen here, motherfucker, he'd say to him, everyone, and everything was a motherfucker. You could almost have a normal conversation with him if you blanked out all the motherfucking. Listen here, motherfucker. He leaned towards me, tilting his head in my direction, eyes wide open as if great knowledge were about to spill from his brain and slither into my ear. You got to think like the criminal-minded if you want to survive the circle. These motherfuckers don't play. Never look for a fight, but if you're going to fight, motherfucker, win. If you have the slightest doubt, you've already lost. If you're in the act of fighting some motherfucker, it's like you're going to kill that motherfucker. Only stop when the motherfucker can no longer defend himself. There's no honor in beating a motherfucker who can't fight back. Here's how you deal with the fucking cops. Rule number 1, never look guilty, motherfucker. Rule number 2, never run, motherfucker. That's how they pick you out of a fucking crowd. Rule number 3, change your motherfucking clothes because they're looking for you, motherfucker. Rule number 4, be motherfucking nice to the policeman. The motherfucking pigs deal with motherfuckers who have bad attitudes. Say, yes, sir, Mr. Motherfucker Pigman. Ronnie's rules of the criminal-minded were often violated by his followers. You were never to hit a woman, but Rev insisted she was acting like a man, so I treated her like one after bricking Tiny. Punishment for breaking the rules worked on a sliding scale. The higher up you were in the scene status, the more you could get away with. Ronnie's afternoons were spent panhandling, and in the evenings he drank, smoked rock, and shot up. It was 2 days after we were introduced when a young businessman cut through the circle to save time on his way to Massachusetts Avenue. Excuse me, sir. Sir, could you please help me out? Some motherfucker just stole my wallet. Could you help me out with a few motherfucking bucks? I need enough to take the motherfucking bus. My motherfucking wife and baby be worried about me. Ronnie held out his hand, spreading his fingers wide, making his hand look bigger and more desperate at the same time. The businessman pulled out of his wallet and gave him a $5 bill, just to end this one-sided conversation and be on his way. Ronnie turned back to us with a large smile, holding the $5 bill over his head. Looky here, motherfuckers. Let's get us a case of motherfucking Milwaukee's best. What he lacked in manners, he made up for in charm. Even when he was playing the starving bum, people liked him. Well, everyone except my mother. A few days later, I was shaving Ronnie's head in my backyard and drinking some cheap beer. The curls from his hair fell on his shoulders, sticking to his shirt. I could hear the hum of the garage door as it rolled open. Mother's red LeBaron convertible pulled in. I grabbed the beer, prying it from Ronnie's hand and hiding it under the grill, covering it with the cover. A few moments later, my mother passed through the yard on her way to the house. Hey, Mom, this is my friend, Ronnie. I left out the motherfucking Colin part, thinking she wouldn't appreciate it. You're a very lovely woman, he said casually, watching her with his hand frozen, waiting for the beer to be returned to it. I was shocked he hadn't cursed. Mother's face tightened, her eyebrows sloped into a V formation. She turned to me. Never bring him here again. With that, she went into the house. A day later, Lars, Edja, her friend Jenny, and I waited for Ronnie. He came stumbling into the circle, escorting a beautiful girl on his arm. His head looked clean. I'd done a good job. Maybe I should become a barber, I thought. It's never the same one, said Edja. But they're always hot, said Lars. He doesn't care about the girls. He uses them to get drugs from the dealers. He trades them, he added Edja. But the drugs were rotting him from the inside. Unkept, he would slowly lose his wit. Over the next year, we'd watch over him like a child. Ronnie contracted HIV from heroin addiction, from dirty needles and bad blood. He'd be my first friend to die from AIDS. But that would be later. For now, he was still on top of his game. Jenny drank a wine cooler. Lars and Ronnie returned from panhandling. I didn't have enough to get beer. Lars pulled at the tips of his mohawk. Edja limped behind Lars, dragging her orthopedic shoe along. Let's get out of here and go to Georgetown, I said, standing up, holding my leather jacket. It was too hot to wear. I don't want to go yet, said Jenny. Come on, it's not cool here, and I don't want to leave you two with the bums. There were new guys hanging out. I didn't trust them. Ronnie had already ripped one of them off for drugs twice. I overheard him threatening payback. They called him Screwdriver Skip. I thought it was a stupid name, but he looked dangerous. We're fine, said Jenny. Yeah, we're fine, said Edja. I looked at Ronnie, but he was passed out. I don't know. I said, looking to Lars. Maybe we should stay. I had a bad feeling, but Lars knew the circle better than me. They're fine, he replied. We left with plans to meet later back at Jenny's house. When we got there, she was drunk. When I asked her what had happened to Edja, she didn't remember. It was the next day when Edja called from a payphone. She was at the squat downtown and asked me to pick her up. Lars came along for the ride. She was waiting at the corner, climbing in the back seat. She looked like she had been tossed inside a duffel bag and thrown down a flight of stairs. What happened to you? I asked. We were hanging out with these bums, Screwdriver Skip and his friend Angel, and as she spoke, her eyes avoided ours. They seemed pretty cool. Skip told me to come with him to carry the case of beer, and I did. Then when we walked past the parking lot, he pulled me in and had a screwdriver at my neck, said he was going to kill me if I made any noise. And what happened? I asked. He raped me. No one spoke for a few moments, and I drove. So, no one saw or tried to help? I asked, and I knew it was a stupid question. She didn't answer. Skip killed a guy with a screwdriver and went to jail for 6 years, said Lars. He's only been out for a few weeks. We dropped Edja at home. We asked her to go to the hospital, but she refused, scared her father would find out. My father's an asshole and wouldn't understand, she said. Where are we going now? Asked Lars. It was getting dark. I'm going to kill Skip. I was angry. Angry at Skip, at Jenny, and mostly myself for letting them stay in the circle when I knew it didn't feel right. It was dark when I parked. Stepping out of the car, I thought of what had happened there the night before. As we walked up the block, Lars pointed out Angel. Where's your friend Skip? I said, holding my fist tight at my side. I wanted to hit him. We need to talk to him. I ain't seen that brother all night, man. Angel looked nervous and walked off fast. We crossed over to the circle and found Ronnie motherfucking Collins. He was already high, but seemed to understand what we were saying. One of his rules had been violated. Now someone had to pay. I'm gonna beat that motherfucker's ass, he said. Come on, motherfuckers, I got some friends who can fix this motherfucker. Ronnie led us over to a group of black guys I'd seen around. They were drug dealers, but Ronnie hadn't ripped them off yet. You know that motherfucker Screwdriver Skip? Yeah, man, he's a scumbag, said a guy with a giant afro. That motherfucker raped a friend of mine. For real? Said a guy wearing sunglasses, even though it was dark out. Who that be? Said the afro. He looked over at Lars and me, sizing us up. Little motherfucker with a short leg and crazy hair. Little shorty? Fuck that. If you find Skip, bring that bitch to us. We'll take care of him. While the guy with the afro ranted about what he was going to do to Skip, I noticed a group of skinheads walking along the outside of the circle, then stopping at a light and waiting to cross. The guy with the sunglasses tipped them down over his nose so he could get a better look at the skins and then said, Yo, man, it's those crackers. You better get Manny. The guy with the afro ran off and came back with 3 other guys. The light changed and the skins walked into the circle. I saw Paul, but didn't know any of the other guys. The skins recognized the black guy standing next to us and immediately started pulling out of the ground 2x4 stakes that were supporting young trees and holding them up over their heads. The guy with the afro pulled out a gun from the back of his pants, and the two groups started yelling at each other. You know those guys? The guy with the afro said to Ronnie, after noticing Paul giving me confused looks. I never seen these motherfuckers before. He held the pistol like he had never fired it before, and then said to me, Your boys came down here the other night starting shit, and tonight we're going to end it. There was nowhere to run. The two groups moved towards each other. I was sure I was going to be the one who got shot. A screeching of tires came from outside of the circle. Headlights bounced light across the path in front of me. The lights on top flashing red and blue. It was the cops. The guy with the gun pushed it into his afro where it was hidden from view. The officer looked over at him and assumed he was keeping his hands up in an act of submission. The skins dropped the 2x4s. The cop rolled down his window and shouted, What's going on here? Everyone was quiet. Nothing, officer, said the guy with the sunglasses. Just talking with our friends. Well, you better keep it that way or I'll be dragging you all in. The cop's window rolled up. He drove off slowly and parked on the outside of the circle, watching. Thank fucking God for the cops, I whispered to Lars. Then I looked over at Paul. What the hell is your problem? These are friends of mine, I said. I don't know you motherfucker, but you better come correct around these parts or these motherfuckers be shooting your ass. said Ronnie to Paul. Paul, you're fucking with something that has nothing to do with you. I still wanted Skip. You better fix this. The two groups started talking. Now what? Asked Lars. I don't think Skip is going to show up after that, but we should go to the canal just to make sure. But he wasn't at the canal either. After that, I'd had enough for the night and went home. I slept late, enjoying the fact that I didn't have to go to work till late. Mother woke me up with a phone call from Lars. You remember that guy Angel? Lars asked. Yes. After Edja got raped by Skip, Angel took her back to the squat and raped her again. Last night, when we went looking for Skip, Angel ran off and told him. They got caught breaking into someone's house. Skip got sent back to Lorton. That would be Lorton Prison. And Angel ended up there too. I guess they were trying to get money to split town. I don't know if I'm supposed to feel good or bad about that, I said. Forget it, there's nothing else we can do. He hung up. That's the end of that chapter. For however good or horrible that is. So you know, this is the first time I've ever read out in public. This is the first time. No, I mean, this is the first time I've ever read in public anywhere. I'm like dyslexic. I hate reading in front of people, so.